Today, we are strapping ourselves into the back of a desperately overloaded, rickety truck and taking a pretty devastating 1,000-mile trip west.
We're following the pilgrimage of one of the most significant families in all of American literature.
We are diving deep into John Steinbeck's monumental 1939 novel, The Grapes of Wrath.
And this dive is so essential because, this is not just historical fiction. It's more like an X-ray of American capitalism and the human spirit itself.
It really is.
It's a story of survival, of resilience, and that horrifying moment when a family realizes their true enemy isn't the environmental disaster they fled,
But the economic system.
the system itself. It's this incredible study in how profound human dignity can be forged in the hottest, most terrible fires of despair.
That immediately gets to the heart of why this novel is still so vital. Let's really unpack this because the opening hook for this story has this immediate visceral punch.
It really does.
This is the American story that was so controversial when it first came out, and we're talking 1939, right in the depths of the Great Depression, that the government actually called it dangerous propaganda.
They saw it as a threat, a genuine threat to the established order. Officials tried to suppress it.
And people, groups of landowners in California, they literally burned stacks of the books in the streets.
It was an uncompromising mirror. That's what it was. Steinbeck held it up to America, and a lot of people did not like what they saw.
Right.
He used the Joad family's journey to expose the true cost of, unregulated capitalism and this new wave of agricultural industrialization. It's a detailed report on the systematic destruction of a way of life.
So our mission today is to unpack how Steinbeck managed that balance, capturing what the source material calls the fierce, unyielding resilience of the human heart, despite depicting this absolute abject despair.
It's a study in finding collective strength after you've lost everything individual.
And the immediate relevance for you listening to this is just inescapable. We talk constantly today about economic forces that feel invisible, unbeatable.
Unprecedented housing costs, stagnant wages, climate displacement. It's the same story.
The Joads were crushed by a system too big to fight. It had no face, no conscience. And that feeling of battling an invisible, massive, profitable machine is just as real now as it was then.
We just watched the Joads try to fight it with nothing but their humanity.
So let's set the stage. Let's get into the physical and psychological toll this world took on these people right from the start. Our story begins in the 1930s, eastern Oklahoma, but the setting itself is a character, a destructive, agonizing one, the Dust Bowl.
And this isn't just, dry weather. The land is literally turning against its inhabitants. It's becoming this fine choking powder. The sky is described as a permanent hazy brown.
The sun is just gone for days at a time.
It's apocalyptic. Steinbeck's language is so visceral, the sky becomes a pale, sickly disk. And you have this terrible, relentless image of the children with that dry, hacking cough.
Right.
Because they are breathing in the very earth that was supposed to sustain them. Their world is literally turning to ash.
So the core conflict is that the entire world of these tenant farmers, built on generational rhythms of cotton and corn, is just collapsing.
And that collapse forces thousands of people onto the road, including our focus, the Joad family, a clan held together by blood, now starting this desperate 1,000-mile pilgrimage west toward a rumored paradise.
California.
And
this family unit is fascinating. We meet these key figures right away. The first one we encounter is Tom Joad.
Yeah, Tom. He's fresh out on parole from McAllister State Penitentiary. He did 4 years for homicide.
So he's a man of direct physical action, sometimes violent.
But his first instinct, his only goal, is just to go home, to find the stable life that he lost. And his parole is so fragile, he's forbidden from leaving the state, which just heightens the tension when the family decides they have to go.
And it's in the ruins of his old family farm that he finds Jim Casy, the former preacher.
And Casey is crucial. He represents the novel's entire spiritual evolution. He's hollowed out. He lost the traditional spirit of the church because he was just plagued by the hypocrisy of it all. His own desires, the rigid doctrines.
He couldn't reconcile it.
He couldn't. So he quit the pulpit, but he didn't abandon faith. He's searching for a new one, an unnamed faith.
And what he finds isn't in scripture or in heaven.
No, it's in the shared human experience. It's in the connection between people. His new philosophy, which will eventually transform Tom, is that holiness is communal. It's found in the group, in the collective.
When Tom finally catches up with the rest of the Joads at his Uncle John's house, we meet the real core of the family.
Yeah, Joad.
Ma Joad. She is the quiet, fierce citadel of the family. She is the undisputed moral authority, and her single focus, above all else, is just keeping the group together.
And Pa Joad is there too. He's a good man, the traditional patriarch, but his authority is already broken. It's tied too closely to the land he's just lost control of.
Then there's Rose of Sharon, Tom's sister, young, married to Connie, and heavily pregnant.
And she's still holding on to these incredibly naive, almost advertising-level dreams of what they'll find in California.
A dream of oranges and soft fruit.
Yeah, a dream that's about to be bulldozed by a very harsh reality.
Which brings us to the deeper historical context, because this was not, a natural disaster. It was a man-made tragedy.
That's the key. The literal environment, the dust, was an invader, yes. But the real enemy, the monster, as Steinbeck calls it, was institutional. It was operating hundreds of miles away.
And Tom learns this from a neighbor, Muley Graves. He tells him the Joads were tractored out. Let's spend a minute on that phrase, tractored out. It's so chilling.
It captures the impersonal mechanics of it all. It wasn't an eviction by a landlord who knew their names. It was. It was worse than an evil man in a black hat.
Because there's no one to fight.
Exactly. The source material is terrifyingly clear on this. The eviction notice was a line on a ledger in an office hundreds of miles away.
It's just a calculation.
It's just business. The bank, driven by this new logic of industrial efficiency, realized that small tenant farming was inefficient compared to large-scale corporate agriculture. The monster breathed profits and ate interest.
And the land laws at the time just incentivized this whole process.
Completely. Banks foreclosed, consolidated the land, and found they could farm thousands of acres more cheaply with machinery than with dozens of families. It wasn't malice. It was just economic calculus.
And the instrument of that destruction is so horrifyingly specific.
The massive diesel-powered tractor. And Steinbeck is brilliant here. He emphasizes that it wasn't driven by some stranger, some outsider.
It was Joe Davis's boy, a neighbor.
A neighbor, working for a miserable $3 a day, sitting on that iron seat, his face hidden by goggles, turning himself into just an extension of the machine, paid to erase generations of life.
The fences Tom's father built, the porch where Tom was born, the well.
All of it, erased without a soul or a second thought. That's the chilling mechanism of the monster. It turns men against each other and makes them cogs in a system that has no loyalty to them either.
And this systemic removal then turns their personal loss into this ritual of financial humiliation, the sequence where they have to sell off their entire legacy.
The ritual of the sellout. Everything they owned, mules, tools, furniture laid out for these sharp-eyed opportunists who smelled desperation.
They knew the Joads had to leave. They couldn't take anything with them.
So it was all sold for pennies on the dollar. The humiliation is just profound. They're forced to participate in the final destruction of their own world.
And the final sum they get after selling off everything they couldn't strap onto the vehicle.
It's a staggering number, a mere $154.
$154. Think about that for a moment. To cross a continent, nearly 1,500 miles, and start an entirely new life.
That money goes immediately into their one vessel of hope.
The 1926 Hudson Super Six sedan.
A relic. It's crude, it's overloaded, but the moment they buy it, it becomes their entire world.
Yeah.
A rolling home. They pile mattresses, pots, and all 12 of them onto it. It's this fragile symbol of their collective hope.
If the Hudson is the symbol of hope, Ma Joad is the engine of their survival. The source material really emphasizes the weight of memory she carries, and then consciously sacrifices.
It's one of the most powerful, heartbreaking psychological scenes in the whole book. She's sitting on the ground with this small wooden box of keepsakes, a pair of earrings from her mother, a newspaper clipping.
Things that are monetarily worthless but are her only tethers to her past.
Right, and she understands that sentiment is a luxury they can't afford anymore.
She has to let it go.
She examines each one, and then she throws almost all of them into the fire. She is consciously shedding her history, a spiritual amputation. Steinbeck says she cannot afford the weight of memory. Her focus has to be entirely on getting the family to California in one piece.
Her strength is defined by what she chooses to let go of.
Absolutely. And that necessity drives her to assume a new kind of authority. You see the power shift happening right there. Pa Joad's identity was fused with the land. When the land is taken, his identity just crumbles.
But Ma is different.
Ma is tethered to the human bond. There's this frightening scene where she senses the family starting to splinter, and she pulls out a cast iron skillet, a symbol of home, and threatens to smash anyone who tries to leave.
Wow.
But the real shift is verbal. She tells Pa that he used to be the head because he dealt with the outside world, but now the woman holds the family together. She effectively usurps the patriarchal authority, not with aggression, but with absolute necessity. The family knows she's their last defense.
And this is immediately tested by the chaotic departure itself. The final unwilling passenger is Grandpa Joad.
Grandpa just refuses to leave the soil. His roots are too deep. He screams, he thrashes, and the family has to drug him with sleeping medicine. They load him onto the truck like a sack of grain.
It's so tragic.
It is, because it signals that the journey has already started to exact a terrible price, the loss of the will to live, before they've even crossed the state line.
Or with that, the 12 Joads plus Jim Casy join the slow, sad, human river flowing west on Highway 66.
And that journey west, the 1,500 miles of dusty highway, it immediately tests Ma Joad's resolve. The first tear in the family fabric comes almost instantly.
Yeah, at their very first stop for the night, Grandpa Joad has a violent stroke and dies right there in the dirt.
Consumed by the pain of separation from his land, his final garbled words were about burying his face in the dirt, squeezing it between his fingers. It's a profound shock.
And this death forces them into this crude, desperate act of dignity. They have no money for a proper burial.
So they have to bury him themselves on a hill overlooking the highway, just wrapped in a blanket. But crucially, they place a note in a bottle.
What's the note say?
It's a simple piece of paper. His name, his date of death, the circumstances. It's this desperate attempt to preserve his identity, to make sure he's not mistaken for some vagrant, some pauper. It's a defining motif of their whole journey.
And yet, despite these crushing individual losses, the journey paradoxically begins to foster a new kind of community.
This is the critical moment where Steinbeck introduces his thesis on collective action. When the Joe's Hudson breaks down a failed bearing, a blown tire, other migrant families stop.
They don't take advantage.
No, they share tools, they share knowledge, they share time. These temporary communities that form each night in the roadside camps, they're bound by a shared destination and a common enemy of poverty. They're creating a new society of the dispossessed.
It seems counterintuitive, doesn't it, that this crushing personal loss would foster such a deep sense of community?
Well, that is precisely Casy's revelation. He watches these broken people share the little they have, and he sees his philosophy come to life. Holiness isn't an individual quest for salvation. It's collective.
The one big soul.
Maybe all men got one big soul everybody's a part of. It's this radical, secular faith in the sacredness of the group. And that becomes the spiritual cord that ultimately drives Tom and the rest of the family forward. It's the replacement of the selfish I with the necessary we.
But unfortunately, this new solidarity is forged in the face of growing hostility from the outside world.
As they move west, they're met with coldness, with fear. Gas station attendants treat them with contempt. Local police eye them with suspicion.
They're no longer seen as fellow countrymen. They're an invading horde, a pollutant.
And they're branded with a word, Okies. That single word is used as a social and legal weapon to strip them of their humanity. It marks them as dirty, ignorant, and less than human.
And that tactic of division, it justifies the exploitation that's coming.
Exactly. If you dehumanize them, you don't feel guilty paying them starvation wages.
The journey then exacts its second sacrifice, just as they reach the California border after crossing the brutal Mojave Desert.
Grandma. She'd been fading since Grandpa's death, and she finally lets go in the blistering desert heat. But Ma Joad, ever the citadel, she faces this new, grim choice. She's terrified of the delay at the agricultural inspection station.
A delay could mean the whole family starves while they wait.
So she performs this truly grim vigil. She lies beside Grandma's silent body all night long to smuggle their matriarch across the state line. She sacrifices her own immediate grief to ensure the family can pass inspection without delay.
They finally arrive. After 1,500 miles of dust and hope, they get to the promised land. And the initial sight when they crest the mountain pass is a valley of impossible green.
A literal paradise of fruit and water.
But the dream just shatters instantly.
This paradise is locked down. It has fences, armed guards, and a hatred for the poor. Their first stop is a Hooverville, bitterly named after the former president, a shantytown of just utter squalor.
And Steinbeck's descriptions of these camps are just haunting. Tents made of burlap sacks and salvaged cardboard. Listless children with the distended bellies of malnutrition.
A defeated, hollow-eyed man tells them the cruel lie. The handbills, the bright orange flyers that promised all this work, they were a calculated tactic of exploitation.
A trap.
A trap. There might be 5,000 actual jobs, but the landowners intentionally printed 300,000 flyers.
To create a surplus of labor.
A massive surplus of desperate laborers. It drives the wages down to the point of starvation, people working for 5 cents a box. The Joads did not escape the Dust Bowl. They just entered a larger, greener one.
The monster just changed its location and its tactics, but not its function. The Joads' experience in California becomes this brutal, forced education in how the system is perfectly calibrated to destroy them.
In their brief periods of work, like picking peaches, they perfectly illustrate the mechanism of perpetual debt, the company store.
Right, so explain the mechanics of that.
Well, the wages were already incredibly low, say 40 cents for a full day's work. But the company store, the only place you could buy food inside the guarded ranch, would inflate the prices. A necessary sack of flour might cost 30 cents. A box of medicine for a sick child, another 20.
So you start the day with 20 cents, and you end it owing 30.
Precisely. The cycle ensures that after buying what you need to survive, you end up with less money than you started with. You can never save, you can never leave, you are completely dependent.
And this oppression, it naturally leads to this simmering anger, the grapes of wrath starting to fill.
So when the company announces yet another wage cut, dropping the already starvation-level pay, the workers try to organize a strike.
And the response is immediate.
And brutal. The hallmark of systemic power protecting its profits. The authorities bring in police, armed thugs, the strike breakers, to break the picket lines. Steinbeck shows us how fear is weaponized. They don't just clear the lines, they incite violence, justifying arrests, ensuring it becomes bloody.
And this brutality leads directly to the pivotal moment, to Casy's martyrdom.
Tom Joad, the fugitive, finds Casy again. Only now, Casy has fully embraced his new calling as an agitator. He's using his creature's charisma to organize men. Tom finds him cornered by deputized strikebreakers near a stream.
And Casy confronts them, but not with violence.
No, he confronts them with his new conviction. He tries to explain their cause, their simple demand for enough money to feed their children. But the strikebreakers, they just see a threat to the ledger sheet.
A threat to the status quo.
One of them raises a new pick handle and crushes Casy's skull. And his final echoing words are this compassionate condemnation.
You fellas don't know what you're doing.
He dies pitying them.
He dies pitying the lost humanity that allowed them to become cogs in the system. And in that moment, the entire trajectory of the novel pivots. The spiritual torch is passed from the philosopher to the warrior.
Because Casy's death triggers Tom's instinctual animal rage. He snatches the pick handle and kills the strikebreaker who murdered Casy. He had just spent 4 years in prison trying to learn how to avoid trouble, to conform. Now he's a fugitive murderer, hiding a brutal secret, wanted by the California system.
But the key here isn't the violence itself, is it? It's the transformation of his purpose.
Exactly. Casy dies, and Tom Joad, the man who just wanted to be left alone, is completely converted to Casy's mission. Tom realizes he can't escape the fight because the fight finds him wherever he goes. The choice is no longer about individual survival.
It's about collective justice, and this is where the title of the novel takes its full meaning.
Precisely. The Joads flee again, hiding their wanted son, while the collective feeling of injustice, the grapes of wrath, is described by Steinbeck as filling and growing heavy in the souls of the people. The anger isn't private resentment anymore.
It's fermenting into a demand for justice.
It becomes a unified political force.
But the system is still relentless, and the final blows come not from a human agent, but from nature, amplifying the misery. The world doesn't end in fire, it ends in water.
The seasons turn, the harvest ends, and the winter rains begin. A relentless downpour that turns the flatlands into a sea of mud and misery. The rising water eventually floods the boxcar they call home.
A symbol of the overwhelming forces just washing their lives away.
And it's in this damp misery, with Tom hiding in a leaky culvert, that he must say goodbye to his mother.
It's a dark, secret conversation.
And Majo's fear is so profound, so raw. She has sacrificed everything to keep the family physically together, and now she's terrified of losing another piece of the group. But Tom isn't just her son anymore.
He's a convert.
A full convert to Casy's philosophy. He's ready to transcend the physical family unit to serve the larger human one.
And in the quiet of that culvert, he delivers the speech that defines not just the novel, but an entire era of American social protest. A promise that he'll never truly be gone.
Let's analyze the weight of that promise. He tells her he is becoming an idea, a ghost of righteous anger. He says he'll be present wherever there's a fight so hungry people can eat.
But he also says he'll be there wherever there's a cop beating up a guy. He's announcing his transformation from a man into a symbol.
And then he goes beyond violence. He promises to be in the way kids laugh when they're hungry and they know supper's ready. He moves into the realm of spiritual hope.
He slips away into the night, physically leaving, but spiritually becoming more than a man.
He's the embodiment of Casey's collective soul carrying on the fight. And this farewell, it marks the structural end of the Joad family as a traditional unit. It's the beginning of its transformation into a cell of the larger human family.
And with Tom gone and the boxcar flooded, the family unit just continues its dissolution. Even Tom Joad's fierce will can't stop the crushing weight of the world.
Well, we should remember that Connie, Rose of Sharon's young husband, he abandoned them long ago. He just couldn't handle the reality of their new life. He was the first piece of the new generation to give up.
Leaving Rose of Sharon completely alone, and then we have her harrowing labor in the flooded boxcar. The setting just amplifies the trauma.
The baby is stillborn. Tiny, silent. It's the death of their future. It's this potent symbol that new life cannot take root in this poisoned land. The California dream is now entirely dead.
And Uncle John's reaction to this loss becomes maybe the most sorrowful, tragic act of protest in the entire novel.
He's tasked with burying the infant. But instead, his grief drives him to this existential protest. He places the tiny body in an apple crate, a symbol of the poisoned promise of California's fruit, and sends it down the raging, muddy river.
It's not a proper burial.
No, it's a mission. The infant becomes a silent, tragic messenger to the world, a piece of evidence of what's been unjustly done to them. It's a refusal to let the tragedy be forgotten.
So by this point, the remaining family members, Ma, Pa, Uncle John, Rose of Sharon, and the two youngest children are broken, starving, and have lost everything.
Everything. Their home, their family members, their future. They're forced to wade through the floodwaters to find higher ground, their journey ending in absolute desolation.
Stripped bare of every societal marker of worth or comfort. But this desolation, it sets the stage for the novel's final, shocking, and ultimately transcendent moment.
They find temporary refuge in an old, dry barn. And inside, they find one final, desperate human scenario that challenges everything we think we know about charity and survival.
They discover a boy and his father. The father's gone, his eyes wild with fever. He's starving to death.
Critically starving. His body is so weakened he can't keep down solid food. He's minutes, maybe hours from death.
And the family is faced with the ultimate question of the novel. Tom Joad looks at her daughter, Rose of Sharon, who has just lost her own child, and her breasts are full of milk.
A silent, profound understanding passes between mother and daughter. Society has failed them. Their family structure has collapsed. Their faith is annihilated, but they still possess one final, raw resource: human sustenance, life itself.
And Rose of Sharon performs the final, ultimate act of grace, one that shocked readers in 1939 and remains shocking today.
She moves to the starving, dying stranger, and her face, which had been contorted by grief, softens with a mysterious, sad smile. It suggests this powerful acceptance of Casey's collective faith.
And she offers her milk, which was intended for her lost future, to breastfeed the dying stranger and save his life.
It's an act of fierce, primal, selfless charity that exists entirely outside of economic systems or social conventions. It restores dignity not through wealth, but through fundamental human connection.
The implication of this moment is the final philosophical question the novel asks of you, the reader. When society fails, when the system actively works to destroy you and all hope is lost, what do we truly owe each other?
And the answer, demonstrated by Rose of Sharon, is everything. The ultimate resilience is found not in holding on to material goods, but in the fierce, unyielding ability to connect with and sustain another human being when no one else will.
That moment is so powerful because it reframes the entire journey. It suggests that the Joads had to be stripped bare of everything, their land, their money, their children, before they could become these pure instruments of human charity.
It's the ultimate embodiment of Casey's philosophy. The individual Joad family unit may have dissolved, but the collective human soul, the one big soul, it survived through Rose of Sharon's final transcendent act.
What a punishing yet beautiful journey Steinbeck forces us to take. Let's tie this discussion back to you, the listener, and highlight some key takeaways if you decide to pick this novel up.
The first one has to be the power of the collective spirit. Jim Casey's philosophy, that holiness is collective, is the true spiritual guide for the novel. Dignity, the Joads discover, is found not in wealth, but in community, in those unwritten laws of the road.
And second, the system versus the individual. This story is such a powerful reminder that sometimes the greatest enemy isn't a singular villain, but a ledger sheet, A line item, a machine driven by profit, a force that remains terrifyingly relevant today.
And if you do read the book, pay close attention to that structural shift in leadership. It's a brilliant piece of literary design. It begins with Tom Joad tied to the land. When the land fails, his authority breaks.
Leadership transfers to Tom Joad, who is the embodiment of the human bond.
And finally, it transfers to Tom Joad, who transcends the physical family to become the idea, the righteous anger, the ghost that carries the voice of the collective movement.
It's the evolution of resistance, isn't it? Moving from the personal through the familial to the philosophical, it shows us that resistance isn't just throwing stones, it's also sharing soup.
It truly is. It's a testament to the idea that true strength lies in interdependence, not independence. The Joads became stronger the more they recognized their own weakness and the needs of others.
They lost their home, their jobs, their money, their family unity. Yet in that final barn scene, they find a new, terrible form of human connection through Rosa Sharon's ultimate sacrifice. It proves that life itself is the ultimate currency.
Which leaves us with the final provocative thought, something for you to mull over after this dive. The Joads were stripped of every societal measure of worth. They were vagrants, impoverished, homeless.
So consider this. Does true human dignity only reveal itself, raw and untainted, when we are stripped of everything else society deems valuable? And if so, what does that tell us about the values we cling to today?